Gentlemen, I want to get into the big well, it's really big news. And again, folks, it's a rumor. I want this to be clear. Moore's law is dead. He gets things half right, he gets things right, he gets things wrong. Well, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is it's literally two tiers. One of which, if you guys and gals remember, there was a report last weekend that sent the interwebs into a unbelievable tizzy about Xbox leaving hardware. You see, we told you, Boom, they were not doing hardware. Folks, the fact that we actually had to cover that over the weekend was sad. You don't have a public traded company like Microsoft who signs a 10-year deal with AMD and announces it publicly to then pack up shop and decide not to make hardware. Ultimately, I've heard this from many people, and I will agree, it would actually cost Xbox more to not release it rather than actually come out with hardware. But we did have, towards the end of this week, some anonymous AMD engineers reconfirm that there is hardware coming out for Xbox and that they are currently working on it. Now, it is an anonymous source, so take it with a grain of salt. But I saw a couple of stories come up from purexbox.com, which I have already added. If you want to read it yourself, by all means, give them a click. But there is a particular page I'm going to use, and there are sites. They have their own website, but they're on Twitter. They're known as Xbox Originals. I've never really heard of them, but I am following them now. They have almost 45,000 followers. And they posted this. Now, again, this original leak comes from Moore's Law is Dead, right? Just so you know where the source is, and take it with a grain of salt. And I'm going to use what Xbox Originals had to say because they did break it down into a very readable and understandable bullet point versus the Pure Xbox article, because they do go into like super technical details, which I'm not comfortable talking about because I don't really know tech like that. So I'm going to use what Xbox Originals had to say. And Korkenstein, according to this tweet, the Magnus chip or the APU is going to be one of the biggest next generation jumps in console hardware ever. And this is what Xbox Originals had to say. Rumor/leaks. Details of the Magnus APU from the next generation Xbox are as followed. It says largest ever seen in a console, 408 millimeter two chipsets, meaning it's going to have two chipsets within the box. The GPU apparently is 264 millimeters. That is going to support RDNA 5. The CPU is 3 Zen 6 plus 8 times Zen 6C. It goes on to say it's going to have upwards of 48 gigs of GDDR7 plus the MPU, which tops out is at 110 tops. The price is upwards of $800 for a possible hybrid console/PC. And this is now expected, according to this new rumor, to release in 2027. Cork, these are big numbers. Obviously, if you are someone that plays with power, like an Umbra, for instance, he has a monster-sized rig. There are a lot of people like Hargeet Chani that run 5090s, and every part of his box is high-end because that's just who he is. He can afford to do it. Awesome, right? I'm a console guy. I've always been a console guy. I'm excited for this next version, if you will, of the consoles because it is going to be an open source box, at least for Xbox at next generation, versus what the PlayStation 6 is going to be. Now, granted, we don't know, but if we are betting kind of guys, the PlayStation 6 is going to be a very powerful console, but just be a more powerful PS5, meaning that it's going to play their games, and that's it. Now, if that's good for you, awesome. But these consoles are going to be expensive. What Xbox is doing to differentiate themselves from the rest of the pack, meaning the Switch 2 and the PS6, is they will be releasing this hybrid box that sits underneath your TV that looks like a console, but acts like a PC. That's where all these numbers are coming from. And apparently, it is going to be very powerful. And based on what Sarah Bond said last year, it appears that that is true. Let's get your thoughts on the recent rumor of the specs of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that a lot of this is going to be very high end, especially if what they're trying to do is that hybrid console. Where it's going to be able to run PC games as well as your console games, that kind of thing, multiple storefronts. It seems, I don't think that it'll be modular by any means, but it seems that, yeah, they're looking to really make this a definitive console, or at least hybrid console into the market. I mean, Sarah Bond did say that this was going to be what the most like technology, yeah, I don't know why I can't say that word. Most advanced console that they've ever done. And when you dropping specs like that, it makes sense. There are a few things I don't think I don't know, 48 gigabytes of RAM. That seems pretty high. I would expect maybe 24. I mean, that's pretty much, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Maybe 32. Usually that's now the standard. It used to be like 16. But usually now 32 for gaming on PC is kind of the standard. So maybe they might. It's Microsoft. If they really are going to go kind of balls to the wall with this, hybrid console, I could see it. They're definitely, this could also be another situation where this is like a Series X, type machine. Maybe they might have a Series S type machine that might come out that might be a little bit lesser spec. So who knows what they're really going to do. I mean, if this is true, and again, it's like you said, Boom, sometimes he's wrong, sometimes he's right. These are all rumors. We haven't heard anything yet. I'm assuming probably this coming E3, maybe even this holiday. Usually they do like the announcements during the holidays, I believe, like of the year before, and then they spend the whole rest of the year hyping up the console and release and stuff like that. So maybe they might wait till this coming E3 or E3, I guess you could say, to see what they might do with it, make their announcement there. They did do the ROG Ally announcement, at the showcase this year. They may wait for the next console to do that announcement as well. It'll be interesting to see kind of where they go with this. I mean, that's definitely a beast of power right there. And if they are doing hybrid, I wouldn't expect nothing less.
I mean, look, if there's anything that most gamers will tell you, when you you know what? Let me throw this out there. And I want to get the chat involved in this. One of the biggest narratives, Crispy Bomb, that we see is there are two. One, people are saying there's not that big of a jump to this generation from the last, right? You hear that a lot. Depending on who you talk to, some people are still waiting for it. Other people will say, it's a shame that we're moving to the next generation because these consoles that we have not been topped out. I want to get your thoughts on the numbers from the new consoles that are, again, this is a rumor, folks, so take it as such. But this sounds not only like it's going to be the most powerful console, or at least Xbox console that has ever released. It's probably going to be one of the most expensive consoles that Xbox has ever released. What's your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, sounds pricey. Could say that much. I think the model of two separate, price point consoles, I think it's starting to say, hey, like, I think it's a need if you're gonna do some kind of, hybrid version. I don't know how. I guess it should work fine because you got the ROG out there, so you should be able to still have your like our Series X still running for years after this. Even probably if you think about it, they probably are trying to make this last even all the way through the next gen, possibly, because we've gotten to the point where you're not getting a whole lot more than what you got last gen. And I think that's a point that even when you see that finally they're starting to take away a lot of games in this past, I'd say, year and a half that are going to release on last gen. So just think about that. We're already talking about the following gen, and it's like, wow, man. I think we're at that point where I think Xbox is looking at it and saying, we want to make a console that's going to not need an upgrade. And you kind of see that with the Series X and the Pro right now. You know, the Pro's out there. You know, people say, oh, you know, it's way more power. Yeah, well, let's not debate about that, but let's just say they're pretty comparable. And there's a reason why Sony brought out the Pro. Okay. So if you look at it into this new gen, you got to realize that Sony's talking the same type of things that we've already seen Xbox do. Hey, we're going to bring out, you know, some separate price points. So in realism, I just think, you know, grain of salt is always good because we've always been promised a lot of things that we haven't gotten. So let's not, you know, act like these numbers are set in stone or anything like that. The fact is that I feel like Xbox is trying to do the same thing they did this past gen and build at least the higher end of it, the console that does not need an upgrade down the road. And I think that's their approach. And I think at the end of it, I think these numbers aren't going to be too far off, but it's going to cost. I mean, I'm looking at it and saying, if I'm going to go into this new gen, it's going to cost me $1,000, which is just absurd. So, I mean, I love that I have my Series X. I think it's going to, you know, when I'm ready to go, then I go, you know, but until then, I think this thing is just going to be a great piece of hardware that you'll hopefully be able to get it at a cheaper price when they do launch this new console, you know, but that's really all I got. I don't know enough about what is in this whole, you know, leak that I would say like, hey, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, because you just don't know right now. And I think we've been told things that never really happened so many times that we need to be cautious.
I mean, it's a fair point. So again, for some, you know, again, theory building, right? Fuzzy Belvedere, we know that Sony, the rumor is they're going to have 3 SKUs, not even 2, right? Because there's a rumor that you're getting the PlayStation 6. Obviously, that's coming out. The PlayStation Portal 2 or the PSP 2 or whatever they're going to call their next handheld, that is also rumored. But there's one more, folks. There is a 3rd SKU that has been rumored to be coming out, and that is a cheaper Series S level model of the PlayStation 6. But I thought that was a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see. But I do want to bring up, use the article from PureXbox.com where they have a YouTuber and you know, person that posts a lot about anti-Xbox stuff. Zubitech, you know who I'm talking about. I got nothing to say bad about the guy. He's a PlayStation guy. He hates Xbox. Okay, awesome. But he did put out a post and he actually, I don't want to say he dumbed it down. It's more understandable about the chipset that we just read. And a lot of the tech stuff, folks, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know. Fuzzy does, for sure. Cork does. Definitely Infinite Umbra. Me, I'm like, yeah, is it more powerful? Yes. Underneath the TV? Let's go. Well, Zubitech said in a tweet, more information about the next generation Xbox APU Magnus. And again, folks, he dumbed it down. And I appreciate that because, again, it's more understandable for someone like myself that's not into building PCs. I'm just not. He says, according to Zubitech, and again, the article from PureXbox.com, which has been added to the show notes, it says it's the biggest die size ever in a console at 408 millimeters. The Magnus die size is apparently, according to Zubitech, 46% larger than the rumored Orion chipset on the PlayStation 6. And he goes on to say it's going to be much more expensive than the PlayStation 6. Price could exceed $800. And in closing, die design is more similar to a PC chipset than any console before it. It's more of a PC than a console. I mean, again, yes, it sounds like it's going to be more of a PC than a console. It's a hybrid. It's probably less a console than anything before it. But that's because Xbox is moving in a different direction to bring more power to its players. They want more people to buy the box. That's why they're also going to have OEM devices. But what's interesting about this is the rumor for Xbox Fuzzy Belvedere isn't just this monster sized box that's going to be upwards of $800. There is a rumor that they're going to have two SKUs like they did in this generation, where there's going to be a dockable S-like version, which makes sense. These are all expected to release in 2027, which is quite a few years away. But I want to get your thoughts on the power specs that apparently have leaked and why it's important to the industry.
I'm probably going to be the bearer of bad news, and I don't mean to be. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not the most tech savvy person, but I do pay attention to certain things, and I've learned a long time ago, anything that Moore's law says is a lie.
Yeah.
Period. And the thing that was the exclamation point for me on that was when he was saying PS5 was RDNA 3, when the PS5 was already in production and the series consoles had not been finished or gone to full production because they were waiting for RDNA 2. So let's do the math. RDNA 3 comes after RDNA 2. How can something that's already made have something that doesn't exist when the previous version is just wrapping up? That tells you everything you need to know about this YouTuber. So that being said, he's gotten many of things wrong before. Some of the things that stand out to me on this that just set off red flags for me is that it's RDNA 5. Why? RDNA 4 was in the most recent release for AMD cards. They were going to work on RDNA 5. I could be wrong, but the little bit that I paid attention, because I'm an NVIDIA fanboy more than AMD fanboy, so just to put that out there, I thought they were getting rid of RDNA 5 for UDNA. So the fact that UDNA is not mentioned tells me this is BS. I hope I'm wrong, but just for, crap and giggles or whatever, UDNA is supposed to be the most recent language that they're working on, especially considering that this is going to more than likely have an AI component, which they don't really go into detail about an AI component, which I know it will have an AI component because that's what we saw in the Copilot PCs. They went with Snapdragon as opposed to something through AMD, but all of that being said, that was the big push for the Copilot, Surface and other laptops and such. No AI really referenced in this, red flag. 48 gigabytes of memory, red flag. To put that in a console as opposed to something that's a swappable deal for PC would automatically put the price point somewhere at $400 just for the memory alone. What is it, GDR7, I think they may mention. Yeah, that's $400 at a minimum, and it's an oddball number, which, yes, shared memory, which the whole thing of them trying to separate CPU, GPU, it's an APU. They work in conjunction. It could be a bigger die. That's fine. I get that. But to go with the 3 nanometer and Zen 6, they're throwing a bunch of numbers and nomenclature that's recent that doesn't make sense for what they're telling you it's able to do. It's stuff that people are familiar with, but there's just a lot of stuff that isn't adding up. Like, I would believe 32 gigs. That would be a blessing for the next console to have. I mean, let's put things in perspective. The Xbox Ally X, badass machine, it's 24 gigs. And it's reasonably priced at $1,000. The Legion Go 2 is 32 gigs on the top end. That's what, 1,500? So you're starting to see if the big boy Legion Go 2 is 32 gigs, why is this 48? Does that make sense? And that's an APU setup as well. So it's going to be using shared RAM. There's a lot of stuff that's just BS in this, and I hope I'm wrong. All this wish list of stuff looks good. Some of it outdated more so than what I think would be in the next chipset with the partnership with AMD. RDNA 5 being mentioned in any of this just tells me somebody is making stuff up. It's UDNA is what they're working on. I don't see an AI component. That should be almost a separate chip in this, if that's
Yes.
the case. I hope I'm not dashing anybody's dreams. Just put it this way. I'm expecting somewhere between 24 to 32 gigs next console. I'm expecting it to be a hybrid where it's console slash PC. I'm expecting something that will be on par or basically a little bit above the second tier of the current AMD card. May not top out with the current AMD card, but something that can keep up with it, let's just say. I'm expecting something that will be able to deliver current gen games in 4K 60 pretty consistently, even if it's an upscale 4K. Ray tracing will be a little bit easier, although there'll probably be a lesser quality in comparison to some of the quality you see in 30 frame set games, much like your Hellblades. But all things considered, I know the next console is going to be much more powerful than what we have today in console specs. I expect it to be on par with a good mid-range PC. So if somebody's rocking a 4070 in their PC, I expect the next console to be comparable. Maybe not like for like as powerful, but comparable, where maybe the shadows aren't as crisp or the ray tracing isn't as crystal clear, or the specular highlights and particle effects are a little less in numbers, kind of thing. But a lot of this stuff just screams BS to me. I don't know how else to put it. And the fact that it came from Moore's Law almost guarantees that it's BS. Like, remember when the supposed previous leak of whatever I guess it was Magnus or Prime, I think was what the code name was, and they were talking about a AMD chipset that came up on the radar, and they were trying to say that was the PS6, but it was more likely what would be in the Xbox. I have to go back and look. Whatever that chipset was that came up on radar is more likely what we will see in the next console. This is just made up stuff, and I don't think they're the same, because if I remember, they didn't make mention of RDNA 5 because of UDNA being the new implementation. But I could be wrong. I could completely not know what I'm talking about on this, but I think we'll find out, let's say by Video Game Awards, how realistic some of this stuff is. I'm hoping they pull the same thing out of their playbook, what they did with the Series console. I mean, granted, they didn't show the Series S. That kind of got leaked thanks to Brad Sams and stuff, but the Series X was definitely shown. And they even showed us hints of Forza Horizon 5 with the car going around the cactuses and stuff, but we didn't really pay that much attention with not knowing that it was going to Mexico at that point. But all things considered, I know it's going to be a powerful console. I know it's going to rival mid-tier PCs for the time frame when it's released. I'm hoping it doesn't rival their pricing, because some of the stuff that they're listing here, even in mass production, like greater number purchasing,
$1,500 machine.
Yeah, you're and I know they could make a like what would be like in the car industry, we call it a Halo car. They could make a Halo console. I don't think they will. Just like the Surface is not necessarily the Halo laptop. The Surface is a very good laptop on par with like a MacBook kind of thing, but it's not the best of the best of the best of what you can buy out there. It's like the best combination of price per value kind of thing in comparison to like getting the same spec or similar spec with an Alienware. Not that I would trust an Alienware over a Surface, but if you want more memory, a larger, hard drive, you're going to have an easier time speccing out the Alienware to your heart's content, and spend $5,000 for what should really be $2,000 or $2,300 or something. But I just don't believe any of this. I mean, some stuff is just hopes and dreams level stuff, but I hope I'm wrong. We'll see. Clip this. I'm pretty sure Astro, whatever his name is probably clipping this. Yeah, just keep it on file. Save it in your pocket, and we'll look at this. Come November, December at the Game Awards, or maybe they show it at the June showcase next year, and we'll get more info that's accurate. I would say probably wait for that, but just know that it's going to be way more powerful than a PS5 Pro, and that, like I said, it'll be on par with a 4070 range PC at this point. Not really a 4080, not a 4090, not even a 5070, or I don't even know why they even make the 5060, but and I forget what the numbering is on AMD cards, but like, yeah, they're RDNA 4 right now. They started to do RDNA 5. I think they trashed that for UDNA because everything has to have AI, but I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm done rambling. Sorry.
No, you're not rambling at all. As a matter of fact, you're making a whole lot of sense. Umbra, I want to bring you in regarding the hardware, and why I want to bring you in, and I'm very excited to hear what you have to say, is because you built your own PC, and you understand the innards of what makes a good machine great.
Well,
Again,
I want to interject that before somebody like, oh, Umbra lied. I didn't build a thing.
oh, so you okay, there you go. You didn't build it
I
yourself.
bought this baby.
Hey, listen,
Yeah.
if I was going to buy a PC, it was going to be pre-built. I'm not building anything myself, but you
Yeah,
understand
that's how I thought.
what
Yeah.
you wanted in the machine. So, needless to
Indeed.
say, you got what you wanted. Again, based on what everyone has said, Moore's law is dead. Has gotten it way wrong. Well, wrong more than he has gotten it right. So, hearing Fuzzy break it down, it does. I am not in a position to say that this person is lying. I'm not about that. This is what was reported, and it was an important enough conversation that it's coming up in almost everybody's feeds. People are talking about it. People are writing articles like Pure Xbox and a few others. We won't know the specs until Microsoft and tells us. What we might actually see, though, and I think there were a few people on the panel that made mention of this, is in December, there's the Game Awards. Now, there is a heavy rumor that's floating around that Xbox has two things to show. I don't know what those two things are. That is the running rumor, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's safe to assume, like Fuzzy just said, will Xbox pull the same card that they did in 2019 when they showed off the Series X and Hellblade 2 at the Game Awards? Well, that is a suggestion that some people are making, and I'm expecting it. Am I going to be disappointed if that doesn't happen? No, because they didn't say it was happening. In my mind, I think this would be a good place to have it. And do I think it is going to be their own device? No, I do not. I think whatever this device that may get shown at the Game Awards is going to be the first OEM device, and I believe that is by Asus. They're working with them right now. Next week, the handheld comes out in both flavors, both X and S, and obviously a lot of people are excited, like myself, who are getting it. But I think that the specs that we'll get at the potential unveiling of this new machine, this OEM device, will run parallel to what Xbox is doing. Now, maybe there's going to be some changes because there's going to be an OEM device next year and then the new Xbox device in 27. So things have time to change and get better and get cheaper for sure. But I want to get your thoughts on the latest rumors on these specs because, again, it does sound impressive, but it also sounds expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this talk before. Once I've said it before, I'll say it again. Once we saw the PS5 Pro price, we should have known next gen was going to be. Everybody should have known then and there that, oh yeah, next gen is going to be pricey, right? Like that was immediately. I said that, most and people around me said the same. That's one, and two. They said it's going to be the highest technical or the biggest technical leap they've had in a console. So yeah, I think that to me added up to, yeah, this thing's gonna be pricey. I love what I'm reading, right? I don't know how true all of this is, and I don't know if we ever did quite get the tools with this one here, but I'm still loving what I'm seeing. I just have to be honest. If this does pan out to what they're talking about, and it does have a crazy big die that people bring up, and it does have this gigantic 40 to 60% leap over whatever, yeah, sign me up because I will buy it. Like I have or 30 to 40% more powerful, should I say? But I'm I'm on PC now, but I absolutely will buy the next Xbox, especially this one. And the things that I like that I'm reading about it, although I don't know how true it is, all outside of the Magnus APU, like that's confirmed that it's the Magnus. We just don't know all the other stuff around it. But yeah, something having such what's the idea of that it could be modular, right? I like this, and I've spoke about this before in the past, I believe, to Keasanti elsewhere, and I said, well, could Xbox? I mentioned this. I said, could Xbox possibly? And I didn't know at the time the name would be modular. I was like, could they maybe have a console next gen where you can add, much like a PC, components to it to upgrade it, right? Like you would do on a PC. And at that time, people were like, no, they're not going to go that route. Well, that's what we're hearing here, that it's going to be modular. So if this, the rumor is that this might be the last Xbox, right? I think most of us are kind of in that boat. I know I'm in it. I know, Cork, I believe you were in that boat with me on that, where this may be the last Xbox console. Well, even though it may be the last console, if it's modular, it doesn't mean that's the end of the Xbox itself, because you can just keep upgrading it, right? The next gen for it essentially will be, you can just simply upgrade it. And maybe that may turn out to be cheaper in the end for people if it's just a matter of, hey, I can switch out this APU, right? I don't know how that might pan out. And maybe I'm being a little too wishfully thinking here, but I think that would be a really cool premise. The OEM thing, I mean, I'm pretty much sold on that. I have, it's a foregone conclusion to me, based on things I've heard, that even if this is the last official Xbox from Microsoft themselves, there still will be an Xbox. It just won't be necessarily directly from Microsoft. Now, some people will argue, well, then it's not really an Xbox. Yeah, it is. If they put their software into that and allow for it to play as an Xbox would, then it's an Xbox. Same thing where there was an argument, well, if it's more of a PC and it allows more, like for instance, like the ROG Ally, where you can move outside of gaming and actually use it as a Windows device. If it allows for that, then it's not really an Xbox. Says who? I ask. And I've had this debate with people, and one person in particular, like, well, it's not an Xbox then. And so I would have to ask, says who? If they're saying it's an Xbox and they are putting their tech into it, or at least their software into it, and you can get the same exact or not performance, but the same exact experience that you would off a typical Xbox, then it's an Xbox.
It's just another goalpost moving situation, because what you're ultimately saying, Umbra, is if Xbox and company A co-develop, meaning working together, it's a freaking Xbox, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. This is the same ridiculous conversation about the ROG Xbox Ally coming out. No, it's not an Xbox. It's a handheld PC. They can't play every game. PlayStation 5 can't play every game. Their handheld can't play every game.
That's true.
It's to me, again, it's one of those things that it's what we see with this community. When people feel that they're about to lose the argument, they flip the switch or switch to flip, and and that's ultimately what is happening. Please continue, sir.
But you're right. That's exactly what it is. It's a bit of a goalpost move, and it's like, well, it's not really that, and you hit it right on the head. And I've had other people that pointed that out and said, well, PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4, for instance, can't play this. The PS Portal can't play that, right? It's not playing anything natively. Is that also not a PlayStation device? Yeah, it is, right? So people pick and choose, and it's not as complicated as some make it out to be. And honestly, even if that's their argument, let's say that's their argument. Let's say it's technically not an Xbox. Okay. So what then? Like, what does that change? Right? What does that change? It doesn't change anything. That's when you step back and listen to it, you're like, all right, I'll agree to that. It's not an Xbox. Now what? I'm still going to play my Xbox games on it. Like, what does that matter to me, right? At the end of the day, it's such a stupid argument. It's so useless and that's when you know they're just taking on it and just finding some way to complain. But so yeah, I'm excited. I see these specs. I said this many times. I know I keep saying it, and it may sound like I'm just giving like platitudes or at least sounding positive. No, I'm actually very excited for next gen. I think it's going to be a crazy uplift as far as the technical leap where we're going to have. We're going to get what we, because like you said before, Boom, some people did see this gen not being the leap that they thought it would be. I think next gen will be that, right? And that's what I believe personally. I know. I'm just wondering. The only thing I would ask is wonder how does it work with the whole AI part? Like, they're going. That's the biggest thing that they're investing in with the 110 tops NPU that they're speaking of, and I know it's supposed to maybe help with the acceleration of maybe the worlds that you load into, things of that nature, maybe background things, characters, NPCs. I'm just wondering how all of that fits into everything, because much like my brother Fuzzy here, I'm not the most technically adept person, but I just want to know, how does that all work out? Like, what can that be used for, the AI part? Because that's very clearly a part of what their future is AI. Microsoft has made no bones about it, right? Themselves as a company, but also the AI part was mentioned with the next gen console. So I just want to know, how does that all work out, and how did that play into delivering a better experience for us in the end? I just want to see how that works out. But I'm excited, and I think everybody else should be too. And also, you all might want to start saving. You all might want to start saving some money. Also, I would hope that, and I said this before, Microsoft will be wise, which they did do this gen, to have some type of payment plan situation, right? If we're going to be expected to pay upwards of 800 or more, depending on what they give us, then yeah, they should have a way for people to pay that off. Some type of, and it's going to sound crazy to say it like this, but some type of layaway-esque plan that you can pay into and maybe pay it off before the console drops, right? Like, think of it like at GameStop. GameStop did it. You can put, pre-order, at least you used to. I haven't been to GameStop in a long time, but you can pre-order
put your initial chunk of money down, and you show up at the store, and here's another 100.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So like, doing something like that, I think would be very wise. And I think PlayStation should do it too. You know what I mean? Just looking at, the cost of what these things are going to be, and the situation we're in economically, I think that would be very smart. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, listen, anytime you get new hardware, you're going to see prices increase. I think that the one thing we've learned from this generation is these companies are no longer going to take losses up front. They're going to make you pay for the hardware. And if you don't want to pay for the hardware, then you obviously will game on older systems. And I still think that, like, when these new consoles come out in 27, the PlayStation 5 and Pro and S and X are still going to be relevant. They're still going to be around, very similar to, in this generation, the PS4, the PS4 Pro, the Xbox One S and X are still relevant. People are still playing on those machines. How long these companies support these consoles after the new ones release is entirely up to them.